So we just kind of wanted to start off by talking about what it means to actually own your masters, maybe giving a brief description of that.
Sure. In the music business, there's two copyrights to songs. There's the song that's known as the composition, which is owned or controlled by the person who writes the song. So Dolly Parton writes a song called "I Will Always Love You," right? And she owns that composition. Then she makes a recording of it, and that's known as the master recording. That master recording is typically owned or controlled by the label. So when Whitney Houston does a cover of "I Will Always Love You," Arista Records is the owner of the master. In Taylor Swift's case, she writes most, if not all, of her own songs. So she almost always controls the publishing. The masters, as we've been hearing about for some time, were originally controlled by Big Machine, the label that she signed to when she was relatively young, which is not uncommon. Right. So the way the music business, record label business works is the record labels take the risk. They say, we're going to pay for the recording of the song, we're going to pay for the marketing of it. And most records don't make money. So in order for us to sort of de-risk things, we record label are going to own that master recording forever, life of copyright, right, which is 95 years. And that's, for me as an artist advocate, it's not great, right? Because a lot of the times, the labels will do things that are against the artist's wishes, but what the labels deem necessary to try to recoup the money, which could be licensing the songs into various things. Because when you license a song, the label has the right to license the master recording. They have to get the approval by the writer as well. But so the master is the actual version of the recorded song, and it's usually owned by the label.
And so obviously the conversation about masters has kind of been broadened by the conversation that Taylor Swift has brought up. Can you speak to how maybe the conversation has shifted within the industry and within contract negotiations?
Yeah, I mean, Taylor Swift, for a whole lot of reasons, has been incredibly important to raise an awareness about the way the industry works. And, again, from my perspective, as someone that's been an artist myself, and as someone that has given my life to trying to help artists build sustainable careers on their own terms, I ran the world's largest independent record label. I understand how it works, and I see it from both sides. On balance, the economics for most musicians, apropos of labels, is, in my opinion, not balanced. It tilts too far in favor of the labels. And again, very clearly, labels take the risk at the beginning stages of careers, but there is a certain point in time where it crosses over, right? Where the labels have recovered the money that they put out, and then some to pay for that risk. And the deals don't change. And the artists have to just kind of, take it. And it's to my mind, it's unconscionable. And you can just look at the fact at how hard it is for artists to survive, particularly in a kind of streaming landscape. The economics changed a lot for artists when we went to streaming. And then post-COVID with touring, it's really, 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 really hard. And it's not reported enough. Now, for someone like Taylor Swift, who's a superstar, she's not representative of most of the artists, right? And so I love the educational nature of it. I love the fact that I'm talking to you all about the minutia of record deals, because hopefully that will start to get the message out. Unfortunately, most beginning musicians, the labels are still going to say, oh, you want a deal like Taylor Swift? You want to own your own masters? Well, guess what? You're not Taylor Swift, and you're not going to get that. And most musicians, and this just breaks my heart, and it's what I really try to do with my life. They will trade their rights and their money for that. It's not even the chance of being a star. It's for that moment of sort of validation. Right. My first day of class, when I teach the intro to music business, of 100 Berklee students, and I'll say, how many of you all think you need to sign to a major label to succeed? No hands go up. How many of you all think that a record label contract between you and a major label will be balanced? No hands go up. If Jimmy Iovine or some, record label A&R person walked into this room, be honest, and offered you a contract, how many of you all would sign? And all the hands go up. And that tells you kind of what you need to know. And so the labels know this. And why would they change? There's an infinite supply of artists who are like, I'll give you it all for that moment of feeling like, I've been validated. Hopefully, because Taylor Swift is such just an amazing human, it seems, as well as artist, that it can become something where artists will go, well, no. And the question is, if they say no, what's their alternative? Mm-hmm. And for me, there's an ever increasing number of alternatives that don't require the major labels. And I don't want to just besmirch the major labels. There are lots of wonderful labels and wonderful people who run them. And for some, maybe many artists, labels are great, but it's not the only way. And I just hope that artists are both educating themselves a little bit more because of what Taylor Swift is talking about the contracts, but also then thinking about, well, is the trade-off worth it? Because that's essentially what Taylor Swift is saying. The deal that I made way back then was not a fair deal, right? And for her, it's largely about control, and it's largely about, she kind of views these, as I understand completely, like it's a part of her. She doesn't want anybody else doing it, right? And these labels have made so much money. So it's great that we're having the conversation. I hope there are more of them.
Is there something that you wish consumers understood more about how especially smaller artists make their money and can succeed?
Yeah. And it's not consumers' fault, right? It's in the same way as like if I take my car to the mechanic and the mechanic says, oh, this needs a new whatever, I'm just gonna say, okay. I don't know how it works, In the same way, most consumers, if they pay their X number of dollars to Spotify or Apple or whatever, it's somewhat logical for them to go, well, but I am paying, right? And I don't even, there's no mechanism for me to even pay more if I wanted to, right? But I've got a new startup that I'm launching that will hopefully allow for people to better support artists in a more direct fashion. But it takes conversations like this, and then it takes a certain number of fans of music who go, I really love this artist, and I really want him or them to continue making it. And they've now, and some of this goes back to the artists too, like the industry has somehow made it so that artists feel less than somehow when they have to say, look, you need to pay me for my music, right? It's really diabolical the way that's in art and commerce is always unholy, and maybe you guys are artists yourselves, but like I know for me, the last thing I'm thinking about when I write a song is, oh, how much can I charge for it? At the same time, fans need to know if I don't make, I can't do it, or else we're just going to have hobbyists, right? And so, yeah, I don't expect most fans to understand that. I do want, and again, I'm putting my own money, and my own time into this as well. I do believe there needs to be more mechanisms where those really passionate fans can go, I want to be part of the building process because the value that I receive from your work is worth something, and I want it to keep going. And we have the technology to do that, right? The default can't just be, oh, I've got some money that disappears from my credit card every month, right? There has to be alternatives. And as I say, there are people, not just myself, that are working on that. But it's a challenging time, but it's really challenging for artists. It really is.
So do you think that the Eras Tour was kind of that avenue for Taylor Swift for fans to support her? Mm-hmm. She gave a lot of credit to the Eras Tour for allowing her, it grossed $2 billion just in ticket sales without merchandise, like without all the other avenues. So do you think that was her way of doing that?
I think partly, and it's that for sure. The relationship she has with her fans is really unique, I think, between most superstars. If you think of other superstars, The Cure is sort of different. Like Robert Smith, he was very vocal on their last tour about ticket prices and actually, had some impact. But most of them kind of exist as celebrities more than musicians. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's an abstraction. Taylor Swift seems very. She's managed to have a career that's been this sort of architecture of participation, with her fans, right? Like if you go back early on, like she would do kind of interesting little Easter eggs, and like she's very, very astute at knowing that it's better for her whole ecosystem if her fans feel like they're part of the thing, right? And I say that I don't think she's doing that like with guile. I don't think she's trying to just extract like I think she genuinely feels, and you see that with other artists, right? Typically not pop stars like Fish, some of these other artists that just have this really tight bond with their fans, and those are the ones where the music that the artists make is not disposable, right? Like the streaming services want desperately for listeners to just feel that music is sort of oral, AURAL wallpaper. It's just there. You don't really even know who the artist is. It's just music to cook to or whatever, and it abstracts it out. Now you've got AI coming in, which is going to only magnify that, right? So the fact that Taylor Swift is calling attention to how important it is that there is this connection and relationship between this music. It doesn't just spring fully formed like, Zeus from Hera's head or whatever, right? She's very good at making her fans feel part of her whole process.
Have there been any other artists who have been trailblazers for artist autonomy in the way that she has, or is this kind of unprecedented?
You see it. You certainly see it in the independent rock world, right? I mean, there's been many examples of artists that have, just a real hard. I ran a label that people would buy the music just because it was on that label. They didn't, they just liked it. And then there are others like the SST records, Discord records, like punk rock records, and you certainly see artists on those labels where, again, it feels much more like a community or a collective. It tends to, once they reach superstar status, and through no fault of their own, by the way, right? Like if you're Green Day or someone, right? Like a band that started as very much a punk ethos, and to my mind has kept it even while they became superstars. They can't, it becomes bigger than the sort of small community. So it's hard to find another example of an artist who's been as vocal about their relationships and the intricacies of what's happened with them and their label. I mean, there have been others, John Fogerty from Creedence Clearwater Revival. I mean, there have been those that have been like, this will not stand and I will sue you, right? And for many decades, John Fogerty would not play Creedence songs because none of the money was going to him. So Taylor Swift's certainly not the first, but she's perhaps the most visible.
Yeah. So what else besides her fans and her like vocalness about this, what else makes Taylor Swift so uniquely popular? Like, how is she able to have this very like vocal battle and then she comes out the other side of it? Like, what is it about Taylor Swift? Yeah.
I mean, I have this theory that artists create art in exactly the shape that people have wounds, and it just fits. And I mean, how long is her career now, right? It's decades, right? It's eras. And she has managed to keep doing that. And she's generational. Like it's very hard to find others that do that. So if I knew what it was, I would tell you. I don't know what it is. I do know that when artists find that thing that makes the listener feel like a sort of more enhanced version of themselves, they'll not only stay with them forever, they'll pay anything to keep that going, right? And she's just remarkable at it. And I think it's consistent. Like there's a transparency, it seems, right? And that's consistent with what she's doing with her business relationships. Not a lot of artists will talk about their business relationships because they fear the reciprocity of the labels. She's transparent, and I think her fans value that in her music and in the way that she lives her life.
Definitely. So, like, what goes into a deal like this? Like, we don't have a number on the deal whatsoever, but I mean, I'm curious to know, what do you think like went into the deal? How much do you think it costs? Like, what are the negotiations? Like, she bought her music videos, her photography, her tour, movies, like she bought it all.
There's a price, and these labels, I would I don't want to do it off the spot. I mean, I do forensic kind of accounting work for these types of things, and there are multiples. You can look at the amount of revenue that's generated. The record industry has a certain multipliers that you will apply to it, and a few years ago during kind of COVID, there were a number of firms that were buying People's Publishing, Bob Dylan, so and they would look at the. I'm sorry. You guys still there? Sorry about that.
Yes, we're here.
They would look at the earnings, and then they, as I say, apply a multiple. I've done that work for superstars, and it's astronomical amounts of money, because especially when you talk about all the elements that you just mentioned, all the revenue drivers. In this case, it's important for people to know also that the master recording, when that's used in film, TV, that generates revenue as well, right? So it's there's a lot of different revenue streams that come from that master.
Now that she has ownership of her original masters, and then she also has these Taylor's versions, how does that work in terms of having kind of like a competitive product that you own both of them? How do you think that's going to pan out?
Well, but that's what's so interesting. Right now, she's got it all, right? And people can choose, and she's savvy. Re-recording them. I did this. I used to manage Carly Simon, and it was a similar type of thing where Carly owned her publishing. The label had her sound recording, so whenever Carly's music were used in film or TV, Carly would get the publishing. She wouldn't get the master. Of course, let's just re-record them, and it works. But as an artist, you kind of want those original versions and not just the re-recording. And some fans will as well. And now it's whichever the fans work, Taylor will get her just desserts.
I guess my closing question that I have, I know you might have more, but we were talking about how 1989 Taylor's version grossed more than the original version. Has this ever happened before?
No, but I don't know. Probably not. I mean, and that's I keep wanting to kind of make this comment. Like, it's like you both are probably too young to remember, but it was like 2007 or something when Radiohead released In Rainbows, and they said, pay whatever you want, right? And all these artists went, oh, well, we're gonna do that too. You're not Radiohead, and so it's similar like with Taylor Swift, where not every artist can do this, but I think it's cool. I think it speaks to the idea that her fans are there for her, and they'll eat up whatever she's willing to share.
Yeah. Anything else from you?
Not really. I mean, I just would be curious about your personal opinion about whether she should release. I mean, she talked about Reputation. Everyone was always talking about it. It was like, it's going to come out this day. It's going to come out this day. She's finally said, like, ooh, it's not even like a fourth of the way done, but she recorded Debut. Like, do you think it would be beneficial for her to release them?
It would be so crazy for me to second guess the business acumen of one of the most successful, not just artists, but business people in the world. So no, I think I'll defer to her as to when the right time to do that is, and just be a fan and be an admirer of the acumen there, and hope that other artists glean some of not just the wisdom but the confidence, because that's really what it takes. Artists are a very strange brew of massive insecurity and ego at the same time, and I just wish that insecurity would go away. You can let go of some of the ego too, but just being confident and believing that there's someone out there that needs the music that you are making, and get it to them directly and build that relationship and get rid of as many intermediaries, labels or otherwise, as you possibly can from the start, so you don't have to go back and clean it up.
It's great. Thank you so much for taking the time
I have one more. What's your favorite era?
Oh, favorite
Taylor Swift era?
Shake it off. But that's just because my kids were little at the time, and they'd run around the house singing it, and we had the vinyl, and it was just whatever. That period just was always in my head.
That's a great answer.
That's totally valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in my red era today.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm always 1989 too.
1989. Yeah. Great. Very nice to talk to you both. Please reach out anytime for any of this stuff. But I'm so glad you're covering it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.